Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Yunus Youth Webinar Series one more time. Before we start, let me introduce you to Yunus Youth. We are an international organization that supports social entrepreneurs with capacity building, mentoring, networking, and access to global opportunities. Yunus Youth was founded in 2014 with the support of Nobel Peace Prize laureate Professor Mohammed Yunus, to connect global social business entrepreneurs with business experts to build successful and financially sustainable solutions that address the world's most pressing problems. Yunus Youth has impacted over 4,500 youth in over 65 countries with its personalized social business training. Today, we will continue to discuss the role of social entrepreneurship and youth in the new normal by talking about inclusion. In the new normal, how can we not leave anyone behind? And for that, Yunus and Youth Fellows are joining us from around the world to discuss their perspective on this issue and help us reflect on what we want for the future as youth and also as social entrepreneurs. And to moderate this amazing panel, we have Carla joining us from Mozambique. Carla has always wanted to make the world a better place, and she has had many adventures in seeking how to do so. She traveled the world and taught English in Bangladesh and China before getting married and moving to Mozambique right after graduating from university. She and her husband, John, worked for 3 years with a relief organization that ran orphanages and food distributions, among other things. During that time, however, through study and experience, they discovered that Mozambique didn't need relief as much as it needed development. They spent a season in the US to learn better ways to create lasting impact and returned in 2014 after founding the nonprofit Equip Mozambique. Their mission is to empower national leaders to be agents of systemic transformation. With guidance and scaffolding, these leaders have been able to establish many impactful projects, including a sewing school for widows, a community library, and a tech development team, creating digital solutions to African problems. Social business is at the heart of their projects. And Carla was honored to be accepted into the Yunus Youth program in 2020. She is now one of our fellows. She lives in Beira, Mozambique with John, her husband, and 3 other children. And today, Carla is joining with other amazing speakers from around the world who are going to be introduced to you in just a second. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Don't forget to use the comment section here on YouTube to interact with the speakers, ask your questions, give feedback. Also use Twitter to share your thoughts about today's webinar. And if you take a picture and tag us in all of the webinars that you watched, you were also eligible to receive our full Social Business Essentials Toolkit. Thank you so much, everyone, and enjoy today's discussion.
Thank you, Yasmin. It was such an honor to be a part of this whole Yunus Youth program and the webinar today. I would like to take a moment to introduce all of our wonderful speakers that will be joining us for this panel today. First, I'd like to introduce Amanda Obedike, who is from Nigeria. She is the founding curator of the World Economic Forum, Global Shapers, Ozubulu Hub, and executive director of STEMI Makers Africa. In this role, she provides leadership, strategy management, and oversees the design and implementation of sustainable community projects across 17 sub-Saharan countries by preparing the next generation of Africans with STEM lucrative skills for Africa's workforce. STEM being, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So Forbes Science marked her as one of the Nigerians doing the most to change the cultural fabric for young girls to embrace STEM education and employment. In addition to STEM, Amanda addresses thematic topics on social entrepreneurship, data science, youth development, and reform in education curriculum. She serves as a mentor in the Sherry Blair Foundation, the 1 Million Women in Tech, and Global Thinkers for Women, where she lends her voice and knowledge and serves as a role model to girls in Africa. She was given the Technology Rising Star Award by WOC Michigan, Positive Impact Award of Athena 40, the World's Most Innovative Women 2020, and 100 Leading Ladies in Africa, and role model finalist in Booking.com's Technology Playmakers Awards for successfully championing diversity for the girl child. Amanda is currently writing a research on digital transformation for development, e-learning, lifelong learning, and education strategy, a research presented to West and Central African Research and Education Network. So thank you, Amanda, for joining us. I'm excited to hear what you have to say on today's topic.
Thank you so much. I really do appreciate the opportunity.
All right, the next speaker I'd like to introduce is Shumon from Bangladesh. Mohammed Shumon Mullah Saleem has been in software development for over 7 years, designing efficient, scalable, and secure technology solutions. Besides being a software engineer, he loves to promote coding for youth, and currently he is working as a software engineer, transportation network at Seven Senders GmbH. He is a Royal Society of Arts Fellow, One Young World Ambassador, Their World Global Youth Ambassador, and a Yunus Youth Fellow. He is the founder of Classroom, which is with a K, which is an educational platform and aims to empower the youth by providing quality skills development, training, and mentorship to battle the youth's biggest problems, which often are unemployment and lack of skills. So thank you for joining us, Shimon.
Yeah, thank you too. And thanks to Yunus and Youth for giving me the opportunity to attend this session. And I'm looking forward to the discussion. Yeah, thanks.
It's so great to have you. Next, I would like to introduce Amelie Mariage from France. Amelie is a change maker and advocate for children's rights to access inclusive education in Spain and around the world. She believes that innovation in education is a proven path to inclusion and a bridge to opportunity. She founded Aprendices Visuales, an award-winning tech for good, which uses the power of visual learning to teach and enable children to develop their full potential. They created a series of online courses, ebooks, and apps with pictograms that are used by more than 1 million children worldwide. Amelie has received several awards for her works. Between them, she has been selected among the most influential young people in Europe by Forbes, and she recently has been recognized as United Nations Young Leader for the SDG. She collaborated with many of the world's most prominent thinkers, statesmen, and leaders in the fields of social innovation strategies. With more than 7 years of experience, Amelie is a regular speaker and moderator on diverse topics, such as social impact, innovation, technology, and education. She joined the Espacio RES incubator as head of program, empowering young entrepreneurs to create change. So welcome, Amelie. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. It's really helpful to listen and to participate in this webinar series and to see a lot of good entrepreneurs and sharing time with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Last but not least on my list of our speakers, we have Beverly Shogo from Kenya. Beverly holds a bachelor's degree in genomic science. She has over 3 years of professional experience, having worked in the entrepreneurship ecosystem. She recently concluded her fellowship program at Innovations in Healthcare, where she was running a student entrepreneurship and innovation program called Making More Health Venture for Change, Kenya, to create sustainable innovations towards improving hygiene and sanitation in Kenya's low-resource setting. She has also worked with international health organizations and donor agencies such as the Global Fund for TB, AIDS and Malaria as Her Voice Ambassador Kenya. Beverly is keen on the intersection of health, technology, and entrepreneurship, having co-founded a technology startup called SophieBot in 2016. SophieBot is an artificial intelligence system that answers young people's questions on sexual and reproductive health. In the community, Beverly is also a youth leader in her local church. She is passionate about young people and economic empowerment through entrepreneurship. So thank you so much for joining us, Beverly.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so happy to be here and I can't wait to have this amazing session and learn more, challenge each other. It's going to be amazing.
Absolutely, I agree. I am so inspired just to read all of your accomplishments from all of you up to this point. It is amazing what you have been able to do to make the world a better place, even though, of course, this is Yunus Youth, so all of us are still fairly young, but just to have that vision is incredible. And so I wanted to dive into today's topic. In the title of our webinar today is Leave No One Behind, Ensuring an Inclusive Future. And so as I was thinking about that topic of being inclusive, I realized that we first need to start with not just the solution, but start with the problem. What is the problem? What's the opposite of being inclusive? And of course, that's to discriminate against others, or to hold prejudice. And so if we're seeking a more inclusive place, we need to first really study the problem. This is something that we've learned a lot in our Yunus Youth program. And so I wanted to start with a fairly personal question, actually, to hear it from your experiences. Have you ever personally experienced any form of discrimination? And this could be because of your race, your gender, your anything about you, maybe your socioeconomic status. If anyone would like to share an experience of discrimination that may have impacted you and inspired you to help others not have that same experience that you did. Amelie, would you like to start us out with this question?
Yes. So I think I always have a lot of interest about education since really early age. And when I was student, I was often confronted with the fact that not all the people are granted with the equal opportunity to receive a good and great education. I mean, I'm from France, that this is a very specific point of view, but I mean, normally you have to pay to access really good schools and to have great education. And it can be often a big barrier for a lot of family that don't have enough money to pay for this kind of education. So I always have this interest about education and how we can change and I mean, make it equal for everyone. But my inspiration really to create Aprendices Visuales came 8 years ago, when our little cousin was diagnosed with autism. And it was a big change for us. And with him, we quickly discovered that the barrier to access inclusive education was a lot of difficulty. And so we was confronted that the school system was not really prepared. Teachers have no training to deal with autistic people in schools. They didn't use different learning methodology to try that all the children can learn. And family normally don't have information about what is autism. So we started looking for solution, and we devoted a lot of time trying to analyze and to understand the right of youth people to access inclusive education, and the obstacle when they are admitted at school also. And we always have this belief that education can really be a proven path and a bridge to opportunity for everyone. And that's why we started Aprendices Visuales 8 years ago.
That is wonderful. I love that you had that personal connection and that story. Just to I really identify with that. I was recently, I watched the movie Temple Grandin. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's about a true story, a woman with autism. And I loved the phrase that she said, I might be different, but I'm not less. Yes. And that is absolutely the message that we want to send to the world, that yes, we are all different. We are an incredibly diverse world, but just because someone's different does not make them less. And so I love what you're doing to try to empower the people that have up to this point been marginalized to help include them better. That was great. Okay, does anyone else want to share on this question of, have you personally experienced or someone close to you experienced some form of discrimination that you would like to share your story before we dive into the other questions?
Okay, I would love to like share something that is like from my perspective and also from the perspective where I was brought up and in my environment in my country. So the problem is like basically comes from the financial capability and economic like classification that we have nowadays in our society, or it's been there like for decades. There's classes like when you have good amount of money your family can afford, you go to the higher education or places where it's like more sophisticated, you get the best education. But you don't have enough money, you go to a place where maybe there's not enough opportunity available for you. For example, like if you can complete your college degree, you get opportunities for the job which only takes like college degree holders. But if someone like comes close to it or have like basic education but he could not finish his college degree, so he or she could not actually get this job. So this way, like I have found like that there are many good youths, like they have the basic education but for some reason they could not get a degree. So this way like they are falling behind and there's no way like they can catch up and go to that position. So like when I started to teach coding, I found out this problem and I saw like there are lots of dropout students available who had the like basic education, but after that they are stuck, they could not get enough skills. And nowadays we know that everything is connected with technology, and if you have technology you can do anything. So I thought like this segment of audience who are left behind and they're stuck in a position like they cannot just progress and level them from here to there. So then I thought like I can do something from them, and I started to like teach them coding and make them to give something that they can utilize in today's world, so that they can have enough skills and get a job. And one like positive point in technology industry is that sometimes if you have enough knowledge and you have the skills to work, sometimes those college degrees doesn't matter. So I thought like that's a great point to work on. So I have some experiences to work with the dropout students where uh, I like trained 25 students for coding, and after that like some of them are now working as software engineers. Yeah.
Wow, that's wonderful. I love how you've tackled that problem in your community. That is really inspiring. Yeah, we do a similar thing actually here in Mozambique. We take a lot of people from disadvantaged backgrounds, and we're also teaching them in technical skills to help improve their opportunities and possibilities. And I always love the phrase, knowledge is power. And the more knowledge we can give people, the more we empower them. And so I love that. All right, so I want to move on to our next question here. And so all of us here in this webinar have started some form of a social business in our time, and wanted to ask, how do you practice inclusion and making sure that you're not leaving anyone behind in the social business that you run? Amanda, could you take this question first, please?
Yes, thank you so much. So in practicing inclusion, I try to first of all communicate our goals and our values to the staff, to our volunteers, and to our community. And as a social business, we are striving for breaking the social exclusion of women, young women and girls that we see in technology or in STEM. So when we try to interpret our goals, our volunteers or who is working with us, they have a better understanding. And also it helps us to measure our progress together. And also we try to practice empathy. Empathy is really imperative in today's world. It's a skill that I actually advise everyone to start integrating. By giving a value of belonging and putting each other in each other's shoe, we actually help ourselves intellectually, emotionally. And also, I try to have like an effective meeting. You know, this effective meeting helps because now you are taking everybody's input, everybody is contributing, everybody is participating, irrespective of their gender or their tribe, which we actually see that existing in a country like Nigeria that has over 300 tribes. So everybody is bringing in, yes, so everybody is bringing in their inputs and everybody is valued. So we teach us each other to respect each other and be cautious. Now that's on the project level or on internally. But what we usually do importantly is we try to ensure that everybody participates, because it's when you give everyone a chance, they actually know how to give other people a chance outside STEMI Makers Africa.
Absolutely, yes. I love the phrase, empowered people empower others.
Yes.
And you know, when you've received it, you have the ability to give it on to others. I love that. Does anyone else want to answer this question here on how do you practice inclusion in your social business? Beverly?
I can go first. Yeah, I can.
Oh,
Can you hear me well?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So when I was, because as you can probably notice from my name, I'm formerly of SophieBot, and while we were building the startup, one of the ways we ensure that it's inclusive, it's by constantly engaging with the people who we are serving. So whenever, if we were taking an approach of maybe trying to improve our app, trying to improve the business, whatever ideas we came up with, we would always run them by the people who we want to impact or the people who we want to reach out to. So it would not be us making decisions in vacuum and expecting them to lie and expecting them to go well with the people who we are serving. Perhaps there are assumptions which we're having concerning their needs that we might need to take into consideration. So every time we need to make an improvement, we needed to make a change, we would always talk to the people who we were helping out. So that's one of the ways which I'm finding to be very useful, even in the different spheres of leadership that I'm in. It's very useful just to ensure that you're talking to people constantly. It's a constant engagement with the people who you're dealing with, so that to ensure that you're keeping in touch with their needs and whatever and however, like whatever value you're going to bring to them is speaking directly to their needs. So that has been one of the ways.
Absolutely, that is such a good thing to remember. You know, stakeholder involvement, I believe we call it in the courses we've been taking. And I loved in one of the more recent webinars, a phrase one of the other speakers used. It was nothing about us without us. Like, don't try to solve our problems if you don't actually know us and know what our problems are. And so I found that to be very inspiring. I love the way that you're practicing that as well, making sure that you keep the beneficiaries in the planning part too, not just at the receiving part. That's wonderful. All right, I have another question here, talking about, you know, going back to the problem of exclusion. And so I wanted to ask, in your countries, in your societies, what demographic of people did you feel was the most excluded before COVID-19? Because we're talking about, you know, we are the up and rising leaders that can make a better tomorrow. And, you know, instead of wondering about the new normal, we get to build the new normal intentionally. And so as we look at the past, before in the old normal, who were the most excluded, do you feel, in your society, in your country, before all of this started? And we could be talking about either race, gender, age, ability, mental ability or physical ability, nationalities, socioeconomic status, things like that, or refugees. Who do you feel is the most excluded that could be better included in the new normal? Shimon, could you maybe take this one?
Yeah, sure. In my country, what I can see is that maybe like 5 or 10 years back, there was mostly discrimination based on gender. because like most of the things, girls are not getting enough opportunities and things. But I see now people are like more concerned about their rights, and also like the utilization of like increasing rate of education and technology adoptance has helped in this issue. Besides that, I see like that in my country, there's some issues with like physically disabled people. There's not I would say like the infrastructure or daily life, how we pass our life. There's not, we don't have enough focus on them, that what they're doing and how we can help them. And I have found like there's is still like lots of work that can be done for this segment of people, because the infrastructure is not there for them. For example, I can give a simple example. Like when I was like, I live in Germany now, so here I can see that if you want to go outside or for transportation, in every bus or train or lift, there's like a special spaces allocated for physically disabled people, so that they can use it properly, or in a way that who are like disabled, they have the I would say like it's friendly for them. But in my country, I see actually there's no experience available for them where they can have it. So I see like still like it's completely visible that they are excluded.
Absolutely, yes. And so that's great to be aware of those areas, because what the things that really put a fire under us, especially when, like you said, when you've traveled and seen it done and differently elsewhere, you're like, oh, we could do that too. And so that's always inspiring. I love that. Does anyone else want to answer this question on what demographic do you feel was most excluded before that we could be more intentional about reaching out to in the future?
Okay, yes, I would like to quickly share.
Yeah.
I understand that people living with disabilities and young women and girls are the most deprived. I'll give you an example. Even before the COVID pandemic, when a lot of organizations were trying to sensitize and give an orientation on how to prevent COVID pandemic, we barely saw organizations who actually try to interpret it, for the deaf and the dumb, and also there was no orientation for them. And because of their really frail, they are marginalized, where nobody really pays attention, we found out that the tendency of them having this disease was high. So, and also that goes for young women and girls. So a lot of times we actually assume that maybe everything is figured out there, but there is no attention that is drawn to this particular group. And this actually affects it even before the pandemic and right now. So what we need to do, I think, is just about giving a remedy, but mentoring and giving an orientation, because I know that these people don't have the knowledge, they don't have the guidance. But with proper guidance, we can actually include them in a society where they are better orientated and can also design solutions to an existing problem that affects them.
That's great. Yes, those are great observations as well. I love what you're doing there. That's so necessary, because you're right. Those demographics are often very excluded, very excluded from just normal society, normal experience. And as we're seeing, as you mentioned, they're at such a great disadvantage now in our global situation. And so how do we include them better in the future is a great question to tackle. All right. And so I have another. Oh yeah, did you want to add to that as well?
Yes, I'd like to add something small on that. What I realized, at least from my country, when COVID struck, is that the people who were initially very underprivileged are the people who have suffered the most during this time. So, for example, if you did not have a secure job, these were the people who are currently most affected, because they're the people whose jobs were slashed, or people whose jobs were, for For example, I'm from a privileged background. I've got an opportunity to go to university. Therefore, I have a stable job. Therefore, I tend to, I have some sort of job security or have savings that can cushion me during a hard time. So you can imagine, try and look back, somebody who does not have an education, does not have a proper job, they're the ones who would maybe have a blue collar job. They'd be the ones who would be affected, but they would be laid off. They don't have health cover. Like, it's just the inequality keeps on going and going and going. So for me, I think that's a demographic which I think have really were discriminated before COVID, is being discriminated even now. So like basically just poverty is the poverty cycle just keeps going and going and going.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Over to you, Kala.
And yes, absolutely. That is something that we observe here in Mozambique as well. It's just the, poverty often turns out to be just a cycle. It just keeps repeating generation after generation, and unless something comes in and breaks that cycle and provides opportunities for people who otherwise never would have had them. And so I love that that's what you're trying to do. That is great. And so we talked a little bit earlier about how we are using our own social businesses to be more inclusive, but perhaps not everyone watching this webinar owns a business or influences any business. And so my next question is, how can just average people who just have an average job, they're just an employee, how can average people become advocates for a better inclusive future in society? And so Amelie, could you take this question, please?
Yeah, I think that the change-making journey, it's not like a very easy path. Sometimes it's really difficult, and it can be also like a lonely journey until you find like your community. But I also think that normally start some things, it's like more easy than we used to think.
Yes.
And sometimes it's just about like doing the first step and look like around you and see some injustice. And I think being an advocate in my case, and I think like most youth and youth also, it's not that you wake up one morning and you say, oh yes, I will advocate. No, it's something that just go and go and go. And I mean, in your daily life, for example, in our case, it started really strong with our little cousin, and we start working with him only for one person. And after we saw that a lot of our children have exactly the same problem. So we started working for 10 children and then 20. And then until we reach 1 million. But at the first day, it was not like, I want to reach 1 million. It just, no, I want to help just one person. And after helping this person, you just help another one and another one. And after you build this community.
That is such amazing advice. I love that. Yes, that, it's okay to start small. It's okay to start with just one. And then you just watch the impact to grow from there, because you never know if the one that you impact might go on to be the one to impact the million, even if it's not you personally, but just those small acts of kindness, recognizing and noticing the people around you. That is such a great place to start in being an advocate for inclusiveness. Did anyone else want to answer this question on being an advocate for inclusiveness in society?
Yeah, I can add some things like to be an advocate, like you don't always have to like tell people. Instead, like sometimes you see some discrimination is happening around you. So you have to like take action against those things, speak up against those things, and try to like don't do those things, because as a human we tend to like do things what we are like watching happening all around us. So if you see, like if you start speaking against these things and start taking actions against these things, and you start like stop doing those things, so your friend, your family, and the person like who is watching you, he will learn from you. And at that, when they see your actions, they will feel like, yes, we should not do that. And in this way, you can automatically, it will have impact around your environment. And I think that's a good thing. Individually, if you start following those things, automatically you will see some people will be automatically start following you. Yeah.
Absolutely. I love that advice as well. Just, when you see it happening, step up, do something, speak up. That is such a good place to start, because it is uncomfortable. It is hard, especially when you're the only one in a whole crowd speaking up against it. But like you said, your one time of speaking up might encourage and empower someone else to have the courage to do it the next time. That is so great. Anyone else want to take this question? I feel like it's a very important one for anyone who watches this. Yeah, Beverly.
I can go.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I'd like to build up on the point that was just mentioned on the whole issue of speaking up. It's also important to realize that when you see injustice and keep quiet, you are perpetuating the injustice. So it might be affecting you, but if you choose in silence, it's just as bad as doing the injustice, doing the action of injustice. So always being deliberate to speak up and not choosing to be silent concerning these issues. So also just encouraging us to have these conversations within our family settings, within our friendship circles. It could just be a hangout with your friends, but maybe you feel strongly about issue of governance, issue of education. Just start having a chat with the people around you, and that can even play a very huge role in just shaping how they think about the issues, changing how perhaps they had a wrong perspective concerning race, for example, and you start this conversation and show them, okay, so this is why we need to have, and it doesn't have to be a serious conversation, or it can be a serious conversation, but being very deliberate to speak about it with our families, with our friends, in our social settings. It's also a way of just starting that conversation, not necessarily influencing at a global level or at a national level, but taking your family and your friendship circles as your advocacy platform.
Absolutely. That is such a great observation as well, because so many times, our family is the place of our greatest impact and influence. And so if we can influence the next generation, who knows how much better tomorrow can be. Amanda, did you want to say something as well?
Yes, I just remembered something, and I know we need to actually educate ourselves and that of our community. I've actually worked in the space of people living with disability. I've heard when teachers complain that parents think that having a child with Down syndrome or cerebral palsy is infectious. The child can have it. I've had a situation where some number of parents had to withdraw their children when they heard that a child with CP got in. So I know that it may not have been intentional, but I feel that they are less educated. They are actually ignorant in that field. So as we have a better understanding on inclusion, we can actually address and confront these existing stereotypes, because it affects these marginalized communities, it affects the people living with disabilities, and also an orientation is important, because I believe that irrespective of our social class, gender, we all constitute to the development of a community.
Absolutely, yes. Also great contributions. Very good, very good. All right, looking through my next questions here. Next, I wanted to talk, I know especially you, Amelie, talked about trying to advocate for and help the I love the phrase differently abled instead of disabled. Just because you are different does not mean it's bad. I love the examples of like the man who was a double amputee, but he was running in the Olympics with his prosthetic feet, and things like that, where it's like, no, you're not disabled, you're just differently abled. And the same thing with for example, like you were saying, people with autism, sometimes they're brilliantly intelligent in one very specific area, and if they're given the opportunity, they can really shine. And so I wanted to ask, how can workplaces and places of employment be a little more accommodating? Because yes, these people do come with their struggles, their weaknesses, and their difficulties, but they still have but still give them an opportunity to shine. So what would you say to a business to say, hey, this is a great plan to be more inclusive to people who are differently abled, both physically and mentally? Could you maybe address that? Sorry, Amelie, I was asking.
Yeah. I think the point is that as like neurotypical, okay, autistic
Yes.
people called us neurotypical.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that we often think that, as you say, be disabled, it's to be like less and have less capacity than other. And I think that, for example, with my little cousin, it's really funny because when, for example, I do math with him, for example, I'm the disabled people, okay, because he's like really, he loves maths and informatics and interactive apps and video games. And for example, he can do with computer things that in my life I will be able to do. So I think that sometimes, like when we talk about like disability or other abilities, or it's just a question of context. It's depend in which context you are, and you can be the disabled people or not. I don't know if you know what I mean, but for example, in Aprendices Visuales, we have been working a lot of time in creating like inclusive education spaces for all the children. And we use a visual learning methodology. And that's mean that we developed like ebooks and interactive apps with pictograms, and they are free, okay, for all the children in 5 languages. And right now 1 million children are using it. And for example, we have like a lot of teachers sending us a message or email saying that it's incredible, but in my classroom, I have like 2 people with autism, 1 people with dyslexia, and 1 other children with Down syndrome. And normally they don't learn, okay? They don't follow like other children, like the neurotypical one. And with the help of your tools, with visual methodology, they are able to follow their teammates. So it's just sometimes like the context or the methodology you use, because we are all different and we are all unique. And I think, for example, in my case in school, we are trying to use exactly the same path for everybody, but we are not the same. So, and sometimes it's just this question.
Mm-hmm. That's true. And so just putting the right tools in their hands. So many times that is all it takes, like you're saying, because they have the capacity to learn if they're just given the right tools to do so. I love the way you put that. Did anyone else want to touch on this question before I moved on being more how do workplaces and schools, in your case, be more accommodating of people who are differently abled? If not, my next question, I really want to hear from all of you from, which is something that many of you addressed in your introductions and talking about yourselves. And that is how can both business owners, leaders, and anyone in the community really be more inclusive of people who grew up in extreme poverty and socioeconomic disadvantage? How can we be more inclusive to people who grew up without the head start in life that maybe some of us had? And Shimon, would you start us out with this one, please?
Yeah, sure. The first thing I see is that before we need to like focus on right now is to make them believe that, yeah, they are also included in the society, and whatever opportunities the other people are getting, they can also get it. Because while working with some segments of this population, I have seen that the way they have been like discriminated for decades, they have one like mindset in their mind that, okay, those are for only people who have advantages and we can never be like this, or we won't be able to actually get these benefits ever. So first you have to like go to them and make them believe that, yes, if you get the opportunity and we can help you in that. Because their mindset, whatever you say or provide them opportunity, sometimes they're so like less confident in themselves that they just thought, like think that, okay, we are not eligible for this, or we cannot do this. So first it's really necessary to get to them and make them believe that like every human is equal, whatever they are getting you can also get, you just need to try. So I see that you have to first work with their mindsets, and later you have to be like empathetic to them. You have to understand them, that how they think, and the discrimination that has been going on since like a long time, so that has like very bad impact in them, and you have to understand those specific mindsets, psychological problems, and then work on it. And after that I see like nowadays people are more concerned about human rights, and there's also like opportunities are created specifically for them. So we need to go there, make them believe, and then provide them these opportunities so that they can then pick these opportunities and start like using them. And also like always keep supporting them, whatever they need. And yeah, that's what like I can tell from my experience.
That is so important. Yes, I've seen exactly the same thing as I've worked with people from very disadvantaged backgrounds, is that poverty isn't just a lack of money, it's the lack of hope, and it's just the feeling that nothing will ever change. And so many times you do have to go at it, not just practically, but also, mentally and psychologically. You have to, break them out of this hopelessness that they've been living in for so long, and say, no, it can change. It really, really can. And so it's so wonderful to see them, that wake up moment is like, wait a minute, I can have a better future than my past. My children can have a better future than my past. And so that's great. I love the way you put that. Amanda, could you also address this question, please?
Oh, yes, please. So one strategy that I have seen that works across organizations, whether big or small, is trying to design a CSR that is targeted to these marginalized communities or the people that are underrepresented. A lot of times, if you even see in the maybe some applications on grants and all, they are specific, or maybe to say, are you addressing young women and girls? Are you addressing people living with disabilities? So, and it's also good because you help mobilize that community. For example, you can say, if you want to do an advertising, rather than resorting or trying to pay someone outside, you can actually pick someone from that community that is deprived, and you're equipping them, you're empowering them, because now the money is going to like serve a need in their community that they serve, and amplifying them. I see a lot of businesses that get a lot of notice when they actually target marginalized communities, because now you are increasing in sales, you've empathized with the public. The public now sees that you care for these communities, and your impact is increasing because you have been able to empathize in that given situation. So I usually advise that your CSR or whatever you are doing, mobilizing that community, should be targeted to that marginalized community. Give them the power, give them the resources, give them the mentorship, and whatever resource tool that can, take them from point A to point B.
Absolutely, yes. I love that you've mentioned a few times in our discussion here, empathy and just identifying with the people and building them up, from the ground up. Oh, welcome back, Beverly. I'm glad you made it back with us. Okay, we only have a few minutes left here, but I did have one question that a lot of you are in some sort of form or realm of education, whether it's education for children or adults. And so I wanted to know your ideas on what can, the entire education system do differently to be more inclusive of people who historically have been excluded. And so a couple of you have already mentioned a few of your ideas on this, but if you haven't had a chance yet, this is your opportunity in the realm of education, how to be more inclusive. Would anyone like
start?
to? Yes, please do.
Yeah, the first thing I see is that children, they learn everything from their parents, family, and then they start learning things when they start going to school. So I guess the first thing would be like when they start going to school or from their parents, that they need to learn the how to be empathetic to other people, and also to see that whatever a human is like different from you, there could be like race, gender, colors, and other things, financial capabilities. But you have to, like, from the early age, if you can give them one specific thought into their mind, that whoever you see, like everyone is human here and all of them are equal just like you, whatever their color, educational background is, it doesn't matter. Whenever you are like communicating with them, just communicate as you would communicate with yourself. Give them whatever you would want for yourself. I guess if we can like teach these things from earliest stage to a human being, a child, from their parents, in the society, and also in the schools, then like they would be, I guess it would be like much easier for them when they become much older and treat everyone equally. And I believe like they're in the education sector, like deeply from the schools, there's still like a lot of works to do, and we can focus on that part. Yeah.
Absolutely. I love that perspective. Start them young. Start them young. Understanding humans are humans. Beverly, we're discussing how to make education more inclusive. Do you have any input on this question?
I think this is a hard one, especially for education, especially when I think about formal education. I think this is mostly on the role of the government when it comes to when it comes to resources. Now, how much allocation of resources to different schools? So you find some schools better funded than others. Like if a school is in the city, then it has access to maybe laptops, or they have access to ICT, which does not really make a lot of sense. Well, it makes sense, but it does not make a lot of sense because probably they have access to this in the home. Who are in the rural areas, then they've already been locked out. One of the analogies which I like to use is, for example, since the world is going towards artificial intelligence, again, if you're coming from a privileged background, you have access to the internet, you have access to free resources, right? And you can train yourself. You can equip yourself with the AI skills required in the job market right now. But if you're in the rural settings, you do not have access to a computer, you do not have internet, then you've already been locked out of the job market. So really, it's about the government in terms of allocation of resources to schools. But if we are talking about informal education, then it's upon people who have come from a privileged background, realizing, you know what, I'm coming from a privileged background, but also being aware, acknowledging that there's a need, acknowledging that there's somebody out there who does not have access to whatever I have. And in your own small way, and as far as informal education is concerned, in your own small way, try and bridge this gap. If it's, for example, I have knowledge of entrepreneurship, is it possible for me to start and go and do a training for young people in informal sector? I do not need much. I just need young people to come, willingness to learn, and just teach them on this. You will have empowered them and given them the skills that they require for the current job market. Two things in formal education, I honestly think it's pushing the government to develop in terms of allocation of resources. But when it comes to informal education, it's realizing that, you know what, I'm coming from a privileged background. What can I do to bridge the gap? How can I help somebody else who has been marginalized? It can be one person, it can be two people, it can be 50 people. Just to start, is just to offer that helping hand to whoever does not have access. Those are my 2 cents on that one.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. To slightly paraphrase the quote from Spider-Man, with great privilege comes great responsibility. In fact, and so those of us who are born into privilege, it is a responsibility to provide a hand up for those who were not. Unfortunately, we're running low on time here, so I would just like to open it up. If anyone would like to share with just a very quick 1 minute closing thoughts, anything that's just burning on your heart that you haven't been able to say yet. Can we start with you, Amanda?
Okay, yes. So I have an advice that I would like to indulge young social business owners like us, that we should start rearranging our organization values. It's really important. When we actually try to include these people in our organizations, we find out that it's can you hear me?
It's your audio is coming in and out, but I can hear you, yes.
Okay, yeah. So I said I have an advice that I would like to give social business owners like us, that we should try to have a redesigned organization value. Most times we don't really perceive this as important, but it's really important. This COVID-19 pandemic actually showed us that there are a lot of marginalized people and social exclusion that is existing in all societies, even first world countries. So it's all left for us to make sure that our voices are heard, and also to knowing that, okay, we are pretty influential. We can use our voices to amplify them, to, suppress every stereotype that is existing. Because right now, it's just like what we're doing. We try to focus on mentorship specifically on young women and girls, because that space has been long left, and we found out that a lot of young people that are in technology or in STEM are basically men. So what we had to do was we needed to rearrange our value and say, okay, we would like to give women a chance. So we can do something on anything. We could do on disabilities, like giving people a chance, training them, because my colleague here said, people living with autism, they are highly intelligent, but it's about looking and identifying how you can teach them to better understand it. So the more we focus on these marginalized communities, the better for us, because we are the ones that can ensure that our other communities are being heard.
Thank you so much. That's such a great contribution. Yes. All right. Well, I'm afraid our time is up. I'd like to hand it back over to our Yunus Youth staff. So take it away, Yasmin.
This is awesome. Thank you so much, everyone, for taking the time to come and share your perspectives, your experiences. I personally learned a lot from you on how to ensure inclusion in the future. And I'm sure other young people, young entrepreneurs watching us from all over the world. We had Nigeria, Ghana, Ecuador, we had Indonesia, Brazil. So wonderful. Thank you all, everyone, for joining in today. This was the last, unfortunately, the last webinar for the Y&Y Webinar Series, but there's many more to come. So stay tuned on our social media pages and also on your inbox. If you are not enrolled in our newsletter yet, go to our website and subscribe so that you won't miss any further events that we do in the future. If you also are part of an organization that seeks to promote inclusion and diversity in the social entrepreneurship world, internationally, please reach out to us. I'm going to copy paste my email in the chat so that we can continue this conversation afterwards. This video is going to be available in our YouTube channel, so you can share it with your friends and colleagues who didn't have a chance to watch it. And so to our speakers, thank you so much for sharing your wonderful insights. To our moderator, Carla, thank you so much for doing such a great job facilitating this discussion with us today. And to the Y&Y team in the backstage, thank you so much for making this happen and for supporting us in our endeavors as young social entrepreneurs. I'll see you all soon. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.